are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan Abletek on Twitter. Here talking about in the latest in Auburn athletics. As we've been looking ahead to the 2025 football season, now we're going to look back at the 2024 season, and we're going to finally grade the last season for the Tigers. And we're going to go position by position, also going into coaching for each side of the ball. I left off special teams because I feel like I did a fair share of railing on the special teams unit. So I'm just doing offense and defense because I'm pretty sure special teams probably going to tank the score a lot lower than what I think it really would be. So starting off with the quarterback position, I'm going to give the quarterbacks a C. Really, you only saw Hank Brown for a game and a half, and you saw, Peyton Thorne for the remainder of the games. So it was a mixed bag last season. It was a season where a lot of people blame the quarterbacks, where the quarterback was the issue for why Auburn looked the way they did most of the time, and some people blamed the play calling. Well, Peyton Thorne had himself a 2,700-yard season. He had a decent amount of touchdowns, so he lowered his interception count from the previous year. Overall, Peyton Thorne did improve, but it was always you never knew which Peyton Thorne you were going to get at any given time. So I think a C is a reasonable score to give the quarterbacks. I mean, looking in the next year, I think you're looking at an improved quarterback room in and of itself, but last year definitely just meh. Just a big load of meh for Auburn football last year. So, yeah, quarterbacks get a C grade for me. Just mid as mid can get for the Tigers last season. Now, the running backs does make it a little bit better. I just clicked the wrong one. I saw a lot of whack over here on my end. There we go. All right, so running backs, I'm going to give the running backs an A for last season. Jarquez Hunter hit 1,000 yards, hit 1,200 yards at that fact. I was contemplating whether or not to make this like a B because you only got one good running back, like statistically. Jarquez hit, the 1,000-yard marker. He had 8 touchdowns, averaged 6 yards a carry, and you didn't really get much out of Damari or Jeremiah Cobb. But Damari got 50 carries, but only got 276 yards. Jeremiah Cobb only got 29 carries for 142 yards. And then after that, your leading rusher after those two was Justin Jones, who only had 1 carry for 24 yards, which I think was a fumble against Alabama A&M. Receiving-wise, Jarquez Hunter got 21 catches, which he was able to do a fair share of that in the Senior Bowl, which we'll talk more about that in a second. But, yeah, running backs outside of Jarquez didn't really offer too much to the scheme. Jarquez Hunter was the workhorse, even though this year I do see Auburn leaning more towards the running backs by committee. So, yeah, right now I'm going to give running backs an A, because I think Jarquez earned that himself by hitting the number that he's been meaning to hit for the entirety of his career at Auburn. Wide receivers also going to join Jarquez Hunter in the A category. Now, there are some receivers that left a lot to be desired, but some of those guys are not named. Keandre Leverett-Smith, Cam Coleman, or Malcolm Simmons, all of those guys leading Auburn in receiving yards. Keandre Leverett-Smith, 19 yards away from 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns for him. Cam Coleman, in his rookie season for the Tigers, 37 catches, 598 yards, and 8 touchdowns for himself as well. Both, I want to say top 10, not top 10, but like top 5, top 6 in the SEC in terms of receiving touchdowns. And, Malcolm Simmons, a do-it-all wide receiver, 451 yards, 3 touchdowns for him. Also got a fair share of carries and was a punt returner towards the end of the year. But, after those 3, you didn't really see much, but to be honest, the way Auburn ran their offense, you only got 3 wide receivers on the field at any given time. After that, wide receiver-wise, Robert Lewis was 4th, 16 catches, 155 yards, didn't get a touchdown. Perry Thompson got himself 5 catches for 126 yards, most of those coming against Alabama A&M himself, especially that 1 touchdown he got. Sam Jackson didn't really do much outside of the Alabama A&M game. Camden Brown got utilized a lot with Hank Brown, but outside of that, was not a key member of the number 1 offense. And after that, it just kind of goes downhill from there. Wide receiver are going to get an A for me, though, strictly because Keandre Leverett-Smith, Cam Coleman, and Malcolm Simmons led the way. So, yeah, A's for running backs and wide receivers. Tight ends, going to go back to the C category. Rivaldo Fairweather was fourth on the team in receiving yards, 31 catches, 372 yards, had 2 touchdowns, had a miraculous touchdown against, I believe Vanderbilt was the game. But other than that, other than Rivaldo getting a few catches and getting a few targets in the end of the games, not really towards the beginning of the games, you didn't really see a lot of anybody else. Brandon Frazier got injured earlier on in the year. Luke Deal wasn't really a key contributor for the team in general. I think he might have had some injuries or something. But after that, Mike O'Reilly only got a catch on the year. You didn't see anything from Rico Walker, and a lot of those guys have now transferred out or have graduated. Auto to the draft. Brandon Frazier's back. Luke Dill's graduated. Mike O'Reilly's transferred, but Rico Walker's come back, and you got to revamp the entire position because you didn't do much. It's an outlier because we talked about this whenever Hugh Freeze got hired to Auburn, that tight ends were going to take a massive rise in stock for Auburn's offense. It was, when you pick up Valdo, you're like, okay, well, we're expecting like Evan Ingram type numbers when he was at Ole Miss. And what happened was you saw a heavy uptick in tight end usage last year, and then for some reason it took a massive step back in year 2. The tight end's going to get a C. You got a decent season out of Valdo, but other than that, it was just a meh season from the tight ends. Offensive line, rounding out the position groups of the offense, also getting a C for me. This one I contemplated whether or not to give them a C or a D. The tackles were terrible last year, and this is something that we've talked about repeatedly on the show. Percy Lewis was an absolute bust of a pickup from the portal. He is now at Ole Miss. It's just both the tackles didn't really mesh at all, and Percy Lewis really dragged down how his offensive line looked for a few of those games. I remember there was one game in particular. I can't remember which game which one it was exactly, but he started off the game with a false start, and the next play he got like a holding call. You can't be doing that. And I think the offensive line is going to be much improved next year. But looking at last year, offensive line was just – they were good sometimes. They were really bad sometimes. And I can't hold them accountable for everything because the interior of the offensive line was pretty good. Connor Liu is an absolute stud. I would be surprised if he was not on an award watch list at some point in his career. I think either next year or the year after that, depending on whenever he decides to go to the draft. I think he will be a top pick whenever he does, because he just does everything right. And of course the guards. Dylan Wade was okay. He did some good things, but there's some times where the game didn't really mesh with him all that much. And on the other side, Jeremiah Wright had himself a pretty good season. Now he's back as well for the Tigers. Both guards are back. So interior offensive line looking to be even better than they were last year. And now to round out the offense, offensive play calling also gets itself a C. Again, go back to the quarterback conversation. You talk about what fans blame the season on, whether or not it's the quarterback and Peyton Thorne or if it's Hugh Freeze and his ability to call one game in particular the same way both times. The play calling was just a mixed bag. You get Sam Jackson getting in to carry the ball and on the 1 yard line twice against Oklahoma whenever Jarquez Hunter was readily available right there. There were times where you took Jarquez Hunter completely out of the game plan against Oklahoma where you said he was like gassed, which still don't buy that for anything. And, of course, there were a bunch of those games where the defense kept you in, but because the offense couldn't find anything, they couldn't figure out what the defense was doing correctly, things turned sour very, very quickly. So, yeah, the offense play calling is going to get a C, which overall gives the offense a C-. If the offense was like a C+ or even like a B- here, I would say Auburn would have gone like 8-4, 9-3. That's just how good I thought the defense was, which we'll get to in just a second. But yeah, the offense last year was that bad to where it was just it was sometimes it looked really good. Auburn's offense definitely statistically improved. But overall, when it came to consistency, they just weren't there. They just weren't there whatsoever. And ultimately that cost Auburn a bowl game and more. Somehow still managed to bring a lot of offensive talent to the recruiting rankings. But yeah, you gotta change that moving forward. Defense side of the ball is going to be a lot more positive in that regard. Edge rushers are going to get a B for me, starting with that position. Jalen McLeod had himself a pretty good year. You saw the emergence of Kieran Crawford in some games. And I kind of want to count Keldrick Falk in this category in a way, because he had 7 sacks. Jalen McLeod had himself 8 sacks, ended up leading the team. The edge rushers had a great season. Auburn did a great job of getting to the backfield. As a team, they had 28 sacks. Correction, sorry. And, that's a major improvement from what they did last year. So edge rushers definitely going to get a B from me, as well as defensive line getting a B. I think that the units they put on the field were meshed together in such a way that it worked more often than not. Seeing guys like Malik Blockton stand out in the interior defensive line as a true freshman. Jason Jones making an impact. Philip Bleedy, whenever he was healthy, was making an impact. So, yeah, defensive line, very different than the offensive line in terms of that. So, yeah, they're going to get a B from me. And then the linebackers, I'm going to give an A. Dorian Mausi, a guy who I thought wasn't going to get that much PT as opposed to Eugene Asante and Austin Keys, ended up leading the team in tackles behind it. And then, of course, Eugene Asante was 4th on the team in tackles. And Austin Keys within the top 7 or 8, I'm pretty sure. But the linebackers were key leaders. And they were expected to be a key contributor to the defense, and they were. I feel like of all the positions that were supposed to be the strength of Auburn that ended up being the strength, the linebackers is that. I mean, this is a position group that going into 2023, it was like, oh, well, Auburn's linebackers are a little bit, we don't really know what they're going to look like, so could be the worst part of the team. Ended up being the best part last year, and now in 2024, same thing. I feel like the linebackers were a key contributor. It's why Auburn's defense played the way they did, as well as the corners, who get a B from me as well. Corners, a lot of young guys got on the field early. Jay Crawford, mostly getting his name out there. The only thing that kept me from giving the corners an A here was the fact that really outside of the main 3 that played, the corners after that weren't key contributors, and they were obviously younger, obviously not in tune with the game that they're playing at the level they're playing at right now. Excuse me. Yeah, corners outside the starting lineup, it just took a staunch drop off in terms of what we were seeing on the field. And of course, the safeties were opposite of that. Safeties got an A for me. Aaron Thompson had himself a great year. Caleb Harris was a breakout player on the defense. Sylvester Smith also had himself a great year. And I'm missing someone else. Not Caleb Wooden. I'm missing someone else. I think Kinsley Falston later on in the year ended up standing out a little bit. But yeah, the safeties put their hearts out. They played great towards the end of the year. And it was very shocking to me to see Sylvester Smith and Caleb Harris being the guys that we're talking about going to next year, being the stars of the team. Yeah, the safeties definitely earned the A. Jaron Thompson, I believe, led the team in interceptions, even getting the first interception of the year, because it took Auburn like 4 or 5 games to get that first interception. So yeah, I was blown away about how the safeties played going into leaving last year, moving on. Defensive play calling is going to get a B. This really comes, I think the unit itself is just a great coaching unit led by DJ Durkin. It felt like whenever they had the game plan settled, they performed very well. I mean, you held some of these offenses to their lowest point totals of the year, looking at Vanderbilt. You really only gave up like a touchdown versus Oklahoma, and it was off of what was like I don't want to say a sham of a play, but it was like a lucky play. Your defense played great against Missouri. You just couldn't help that the offense couldn't help you out whatsoever. Alabama, I said the defense played pretty well. You forced a lot of turnovers. The offense just wasn't helping you out. And I mean, overall, the defense got a B plus from me because of those reasons. Because of the keeping Auburn in in these games and making Auburn look a lot better than what they probably were last year. I mean, talent-wise, this team was a 8-4 team. Talent-wise, they were. And next year, they're the same thing. Talent-wise, this should be at the bare minimum 8-4 team. And the defense was just that good last year that they were able to maintain one possession like deficits or able to win games because their defense played outstandingly. And what that all boils down to, I mean, there's a lot of B's on the defense and a couple of A's. On the offense, there's a couple of A's and a lot of C's, and a C- on the offense and a B+ on the defense. It gives you the kind of season that Auburn got, a C. 6-6, not 6-6, 5-7. Really, I think it would count as a C. I was blanking on every single record. Really, mathematically, I did the math on this. It's like a 68. I'm rounding up to a C. It looks a lot better than a D+ here, but a C it perfectly explains what Auburn was last year. They were not a terrible team, but they did not get any better than okay. They rode the line that they were like an average student that was just coasting and surfing down that the average score to get a passing grade. And I mean, I don't know what you consider. I guess passing grade would be. I guess passing grade for football season would be a bowl season, but I guess I should have kept the D+ there because I don't think they really counted as got the C here, and I'm not going to count a D as a passing grade for football at least. But yeah, C is what Auburn got last year, and looking in the next year, we're talking all about Auburn football next year. They should be a lot better. They should be. And if not, we might be in for a rough one next year. But that's my grades for Auburn football. What you think? What did you grade Auburn season last year? Is it a C? Should it be a lot lower? Should it be a little higher? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As we move on to the last little football tidbit we got to talk about, the Senior Bowl was yesterday, and I'm just realizing all of my slides are out of whack here. There we go. The Senior Bowl was yesterday, and I gotta be honest, I did not watch the Senior Bowl. I was more enthused by Auburn basketball, which we're talking about in just a little second, right after the break in a bit. I believe the American team won over National. It was a game-winning touchdown to TCU's wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it goes. I didn't watch the game. I tried to keep up with it as much as possible. All I really cared about was how did the Auburn guys do, and some of them played pretty well. You really only had two guys that really stood out. Jarquez Hunter, per the usual, had a standout performance. He didn't run the ball whatsoever, but he had 3 catches for 30 yards, which when you're talking about a running back who has proven he can run the ball very well in the SEC, you wanted to see more of his catching ability. I think a lot of people saw that. And another guy you heard from, of course, Eugene Asante himself, led his defense in tackles with 6. All of those he did by himself. And when I went through the stats, I couldn't find anything on Jalen McLeod, so I have no idea how his practices went. I never really heard much about his. Jarquez had himself a pretty good days of practice. Eugene, always a standout guy. I didn't really hear much about the Shrine Bowl. I don't know. They want you to watch these games, but they don't give you anything to like look back on whenever you're talking about them. Because I mean, I'm not watching the Shrine Bowl because I'm only there watching KLS and Peyton Thorne, if anything. I just see how the Auburn guys do, but I didn't really hear much from the Shrine Bowl outside of, I think, Shiloh Sanders saying he should be one of the better like DBs in the draft, which is insane. But I didn't want to look around and see what the Auburn's draft stock around the guys who have declared are doing. Starting off, I mean, Peyton Thorne is way down here. I'm on NFL Mock Draft database. Peyton Thorne is pretty much near the bottom of the list. He's behind some of these names. I could probably say I'd probably take Peyton Thorne over some of these guys, i.e. Drew Pine from Missouri is on here. I don't know how. Jeff Sims, I would say Peyton Thorne's a better quarterback than Jeff Sims. Connor Bazelak, I'd say he is. KJ Jefferson, I would probably argue Peyton Thorne is better than KJ Jefferson. Hank Bachmeier, I always say, some of these guys I'm just like, on. But like Hudson Card, maybe the line can be drawn there. DJU Youngulale, I don't know. That might be on the line, but just a very weak quarterback class regardless. I love talking about the draft, and I got to be honest, this might be the worst quarterback class I have seen maybe ever. I mean, I've said that about a few draft classes, but this year definitely weak. I am really glad the Panthers don't need a quarterback because I do not want to take one unless it's like a guy in like the third or fourth round and he's just going to be backing up Bryce Young. Other than that, I mean, wide receivers, there's only KLS who I've seen people, he's been all over the place in terms of where he stands. I've seen as high as I've seen people put him in the first round. I've seen people put him in the seventh round. I think he's a lot better than what people are giving him credit for. I think that he could get drafted day 2. I think he's that good. I think he's proven that he's that good. And I think he's definitely earned a shot in the NFL because I would not be mad if the Panthers drafted him in like the 4th round. Not because I'm biased about Auburn, because I know KLS is a dog and deserves a shot in the league. Running back wise, Jarquez Hunter, he's pretty underrated in terms of how people see him. People have him below guys like Jaquindon Jackson and Trevor Etienne, which I don't understand. Phil Maffa, I definitely wouldn't put him below. Taj Brooks had a pretty meh year, and I would not put him above Jarquez. There's a lot of these guys I wouldn't. I mean, I as a guy who doesn't want to sound biased when I say this, I think Jarquez Hunter should be looked at as like a top 5 running back in the NFL draft. Like I do not want to see Jarquez Hunter go undrafted. He has definitely earned the right to be drafted, one of the top running backs taken. I know the running back position isn't seen as highly as it used to be. You have to have like an elite running back from the count as that. Like guys like Chuba Hubbard, Christian McCaffrey, so on and so forth. But Jarquez, he's going to be a good back in the league, and people are going to notice that. The combine, I believe, is in March or early April, one of the two. I think it's in March. And of course, I'll probably talk a lot about that. I think every Auburn guy that declared for the draft got himself an invite to the combine. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of these guys shine going forward. Other positions that are on here getting ranked. Eugene Asante, seen as a decent prospect. I think he's these people have him 231 Jalen McLeod as a 231 prospect in the NFL draft. Eugene Asante 388. I don't really agree with Eugene being that low or Jalen really being that low. I think they're a lot better than what people are saying they are. Valdo Fairweather, pretty low on his list too. I think the film didn't really help him out because he didn't get used as much. But I definitely think Valdo is going to turn a lot of heads. And then lastly, I think the only guys I think they have on here is Jason Jones, but Philip Bleedy, I think could get some looks himself. But I'm an Auburn fan, so I'm probably a little biased towards who I think should get drafted and who I think shouldn't. I just want to have all my graphics get posted this year instead of having them all saved and not able to do anything with them. Let's see. A little comments before I move on to basketball. Felix the Cat says Crawford is a beast. Yes, he is. Absolutely. And people ask, I have KLS in the 3rd round to Pittsburgh. I think I've seen a few people say he might go to Pittsburgh. But again, I would love him to be in that Carolina blue. The number 5 is available if he wants to keep the Cinco name. Unless T. Higgins is coming by to Charlotte, then he can then he can wear another number. But I think KLS is going to be a great pickup for anybody who gets him. I could see him because I had a tweet that went off last week where I said he's going to be a steal of draft. I think he could be one of those wide receivers that you end up hearing about later on who memorizes all the names of the guys taken before him and then shows out. Like an Amon-Ra St. Brown or I think Nico Collins was even an undrafted guy and ended up showing out. Or Adam Thielen, who's a reliable pass catcher who is an undrafted guy. And KLS is going to be a dog in the league. And people are going to know his name very, very soon. We're going to quick little break. Let's have this break. We'll talk about some Auburn basketball as they were able to get a double-digit win over Ole Miss, and then women's basketball able to do some damage for South Carolina, not able to get the win in Columbia. So stay tuned, and we will be right back.
Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program.
Sports available on thewarreport.com. Go to the shop and go on the second page. You'll find your college loop hat and Feelin' Loop t-shirt readily available for anybody who wants one. Both come in 5 different colorways. Both colorways you can wear your entire life, 100% guaranteed, as well as the fact that, that's only one way you support the channel. The best way you support the channel is, of course, by liking, by subscribing, by commenting. Leave your thoughts on Auburn's 2024 season. What do you grade it? Do you think it's a C? Do you think it's an F? Do you think it's an A? Do you think it's somewhere between those? Let me know in the comment section below as we get ready. We're also getting so very close to 1,000 subscribers. It was super cool to reach that. My birthday's around the draft day. So why not? One of Auburn players' best day getting drafted in the NFL can be the college loop's best day hitting 1,000 subscribers. So keep subscribing to the loop. As we get ready for Auburn basketball, who was able to take down another ranked team in Ole Miss at Oxford. I know they have like a weird name for theirs. The Sandy and John Black Pavilion at Ole Miss. Yes, that name. Auburn was able to get the 10-point win, 92-82. Janai Broom got himself a double-double. Same old news. Not only was Janai able to get a double-double, but Dylan Cardwell got himself a double-double as well. 10 points and 13 rebounds. Actually led the team in rebounds. And the best thing about this game is the fact that all 5 guys who started got themselves double-digit points. So you got 20 from Janai, 10 from Dylan Cardwell. You got 18 from Chad Becker-Mazzara, 16 from Denver, and 15 from Miles Kelly. And, of course, Top Edward off the bench got himself 9 points. Then Chaney Johnson got 2 points. Jaheim Hudson got 2 points. Chaney didn't really shoot the ball all that much in this game. Only shot the ball 3 times. They got 3 rebounds to help out. But really, this game came down to, at first, Auburn was down early in this game because they had a lot of turnovers, and they still led both teams with turnovers. And Ole Miss made quick work of that. They had 17 points off Auburn's turnovers. They actually led Auburn in points, beat Auburn in points in the paint and fast break points. Auburn had more fouls per the usual. Rebounds, but that's where Auburn got the money there. Janai and Dylan Cardwell have combined for one of the best rebounding duos in the country, and they showed that off last night or yesterday. Not really last night. It was really in the morning or afternoon. They shot the ball very well, 48% from the field, 50% from the three-point line, which really helped, 14 of 28. And what you saw from this game that you didn't see from the last game was a lot of smarter shots. You played last week, you decided to throw up 80 shots. You won the game, but it was stressful all the way through versus LSU. And it was just I didn't have fun with that game whatsoever. But you still had some fight from Ole Miss. Every time Ole Miss got the game within like 2 points, Auburn would go on like a 7-8 point run and just get the lead right back. And then later on, you have the same thing happen all over again. It was insane. You had some pretty decent games from some Rebel Black Bear, Land Sharks, whichever one they are. Shapadula had 29 points, which is absolutely ridiculous. Had himself a game. Matthew Burrell had himself 17 points, and Jamin Breaksfield had 12. And didn't really get much from their bigs. Auburn outmanned and outsized Ole Miss throughout this game. It truly was just an absolute showcase for how good Auburn is. And up next, they got Oklahoma at home, which will be a test. Oklahoma is a good team whenever they want to be, and definitely will give Auburn their best shot. And then, of course, after that, you got like Florida. Then you got to travel to Vanderbilt, who's a ranked team. And Florida means a top 5 team. And, of course, you got at Alabama in the airplane hangar. So you got a tough stretch of games coming up. I think Auburn can manage to win out of the next 4. I think Auburn can win 3. I think they can. It just really depends what that one's going to be. I think someone on Twitter said if Auburn was able to go 4-0 that 3-0 in that stretch of Florida, Vanderbilt, and Alabama to go ahead and etch their name on the champion on the trophy. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to knock on wood for that guy because Auburn on the road has been iffy, and the start of the Ole Miss game showed that, and some of the other games we've seen, South Carolina, Texas, Georgia, some of those games have really proven that Auburn not completely bulletproof. They're not completely bulletproof, but neutral site and home games, Auburn definitely gets the edge over a lot of teams. I think Florida at home is going to be helpful to them. Vanderbilt on the road, I don't think it'll be that massive of an environment, but I think it could be because of the stakes about the game. And of course, the Iron Bowl of basketball is always going to carry a crowd with it, despite it being in an airplane hangar first and then Neville Arena later on. But yeah, Auburn had a great game, able to keep Ole Miss at bay, despite whatever mascot they currently have at this very moment. But yeah, up next, Oklahoma. We'll be talking about it on the Tuesday show, previewing it. It's on February 4th. That's Tuesday. So 2 days from as the show is currently up. But yeah, Auburn basketball, best team in the country. We'll keep that number one ranking another week. I believe that's 4 weeks in a row of Auburn being the number one team in the country. So shout out the Tigers for that. Now, women's basketball, taking another loss on the year, but able to put up a fight versus South Carolina. 83-66, which sounds like a big loss, but you're playing the number two team in the country. South Carolina is basically a borderline professional team playing college. Auburn shot the ball pretty well. I mean, they actually shot the three-pointer from the three-point line a lot better, or not a lot better. They shot one less three and made the same amount. Beat them in the three-point percentage. Free throws, they got the same amount, but of course the 3 free throws for extra on South Carolina is going to really help. Didn't get as many shots in, which I guess kind of leads to the loss. But you got out rebounded only by one. Assists, South Carolina plays a lot of team ball. And steals, South Carolina is one of the best defenses in the country, 16 steals to Auburn's 5. South Carolina had 3 blocks to Auburn's 1. Turnovers, Auburn had 23 turnovers, and off those 23, South Carolina scored 25. Fast break points, 26 for South Carolina to Auburn's 9. 48 points in the paint for South Carolina to Auburn's 30. And fouls, Auburn had more fouls, and South Carolina never gave up the lead once they got it. But, I mean, the key thing for this game is Deona Gaston having herself another great game. 31 points from Deona Gaston. And I believe she's right now, I think she's like number one or tied for number one with like DeWanna Bonner in terms of 30-point games in a season. And I think she has like 4, which is absolutely ridiculous. One thing that didn't help, Marshawn Bostic had 10 points, but she also had 11 turnovers. So not the kind of double-double that you're wanting from your point guard. Yuting Dong only scored herself 10 points, 2 of 5 from 3-point line right there. Taylon Collins only had 2 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And Sia Sambane, 11 points for her, 5 rebounds, and only 2 points scored off the bench. So that's from Soraya Daniels. So you're not going to beat – I mean, I've said this multiple times. I don't think anyone really went into this game expecting Auburn to win. But I think you do get some moral victories in terms of you did not get boat raced. 66-83, that's like what? It's like a 17-point loss. I don't consider that a boat race when you're playing South Carolina and you're, what Auburn is this year. I think they definitely have shown improvement over the past couple of games. If they can just if I could see this team play fully healthy again, I mean, we're looking at a team that could have probably kept this game with them. I don't want to say win, but definitely would have kept this game closer. I mean, I might be booging a lot there, but Auburn's down a good amount of players, and it does hurt whenever you're talking about games like this where you were kind of in it, but you didn't get yourself blown out. Like South Carolina has the talent on their roster to absolutely throttle any team they play. I'm not going to say my take. I was about to say I think South Carolina could beat the worst WNBA team, but I don't know if that's true. But yeah, last up on the docket for today, gymnastics. taking on Kentucky last Friday for Friday Night Lights. And I'm trying to get my background back up. Took a loss, a close one. Lost by 0.35 points. 197.050 to 196.60. Is my math right on that? 0.45. There we go. That's better math. And I mean, I've said this multiple times this year. If Auburn can score 49 from the vault from the vault or the beam, then I feel like they can beat anything. And what happens on the first rotation? Auburn is on vault, or was it Auburn on bars? And they scored that? Correction. Let me make sure I'm right about that. Auburn scored 48 on. There we go. Okay, yeah. Auburn scored 48 on vaults. And yeah, that pretty much sold it right there. Other than that, I mean, they put 49s on the bars. They put, I want to say they put up a 49 on the beam, which they did. And they put up 49 on the floor. But, whenever I can't say, I don't think if Auburn had, lost or scored 49 on the vault, would they have won, but it definitely didn't help whenever you already got set off with a 1-point deficit right there. But this team's still really good. This team is still really good. Of course, up next for them, they got Georgia up next this Saturday for the military appreciation meet. The Deep South's oldest rivalry of gymnastics, as I have been calling it. I will be in attendance for that gym meet with my beautiful fiance, who we are house divided. She's a Georgia fan, but I do believe that she'll be cheering for the Auburn Tigers during this gym meet because she's quietly an Auburn fan, but she still wears Georgia gear. But yeah, with that being said, that's going to do it for the installment of the College Loop Podcast. Of course, I'm Dylan Larck. I will take on Twitter. Of course, you find me on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck at DYLNLRCK. You also find me right here in the College Loop Podcast where you like, comment, and subscribe. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. It'll be super cool to reach that milestone very soon. Don't forget to check us out on social media platforms, literally all of them: Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works, all of it at the College Loop. Audio versions of the show available on Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course, Amazon Music. And now, with all that being said, thanks for watching this installment of the College Loop Podcast. And as always, War Eagle.